my channel. Today I am going to be giving you guys my thoughts, overall opinion of the new Pat McGrath palette. I'm also going to create 3 different looks in this video, but this is the new Divine Rose palette. It's very beautiful. It's kind of got the mauves and like the dusty rose type shades to it. And it's very pretty. Like, I can't say that it's not pretty because it is very pretty. I will say it's prettier in real life than it is in the pictures. It has a little bit more depth in real life than it does in the pictures. Now, as you will know, I'm sure you guys have heard, there was a lot that happened with this palette. I was one of those that was not very happy. This is just from a consumer standpoint. This has nothing to do with my opinion of Pat McGrath. Probably not technically Pat McGrath's fault because I'm sure she runs the show. Obviously, it's her brand, but she has people that does things for her. It was briefly available on the Selfridges website for a moment, and then it was gone. Selfridges is in the UK, and they do ship to America. You do have to pay quite a bit of money, but it does ship to America. So here's the thing. I missed the first launch, so I thought, okay, well, I'll just wait to hear what Pat McGrath, whenever she launches it on her website. So there was all of this stuff going on the Instagram, in the comments section. Whoever runs her Instagram page had said November 6th, and I was actually on my way to a dentist appointment that morning, and I had waited all morning long for it to upload and nothing. And then she did this like surprise announcement that she would have like a meet and greet and like a surprise thing in New York City, which was great for those who live in New York City, but the rest of us were like, well, where's our palette? It's kind of crazy to me that we're all begging to pay $120. Like, we're begging to give her $120 of her money. You know what I mean? So that was the interesting part about it. She just kept saying, hang tight, a surprise is coming, and there was limited quantities. So I'm thinking, okay, well, is this a permanent launch or is this a limited edition? I've heard several different things. So this briefly relaunched back on the Selfridges website, and it was in the evening time, and many of you guys instantly messaged me saying, oh my gosh, it's available on Selfridges. So I went ahead and bought it, paid the $30 extra to have it shipped to me. So I have $150 invested into this palette. I went to sleep around midnight that night, woke up the very next morning, and I woke up around 7. So it had to have been maybe 6 or 7 hours later. Pat McGrath announces that it'll be available the next day on her website. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love Pat McGrath. I love her products. And the more that I keep buying from her brand, the more I'm falling in love with her brand. Hopefully they've learned from it. I'm happy to have the palette in my collection. Yes, I did have to pay an extra $30 to get it here. Okay, so enough about the experience of me buying it, which was kind of frustrating. We're just gonna go ahead and jump into the overall review of the palette. Number 1, there are 4 repeat shades in here. So for those of you who are a Pat McGrath collector, you probably already know that there are 4 repeats in here. So there are 6 new shades and 4 repeat shades. So the first repeat shade is this one right up here on the top. This one is called Skin Show Nude, and this one is from the Mothership I Subliminal palette. Now, fortunately, I don't have that palette in my collection, so this is a new shade for me. But if you have the Mothership I palette, then this is a repeat. The second repeat shade we have right here is this one down here. So this one is from the Mothership II Sublime palette. I don't have that palette in my collection as well. So this one didn't really, I'm happy to have it because I don't have Mothership 1 or 2 palette. So then we move on to this one right here. And this one, I didn't know where that one come from. I actually had to watch, I think it was my friend Morgan Turner. She uploaded her review of the palette, and I knew that this was a repeat shade, but I didn't know where the actual shade came from. And this is actually a highlighter. So let's see, this one is called the Iridescent 003, and it is from the Sublime Highlighting Trio. So this one kind of has like a slick to it, and it's really holographic, like really, I mean, it's very holographic. Now, that is not a shade that I would personally wear as a highlighter, but I do think if you have a darker skin tone, that would be beautiful as a highlighter because it does kind of have that like pink iridescence to it. Then we have this one down here. This one is the 4th repeat shade. This one is called the Astral Solstice, and I actually already have this shade in the Midnight Sun palette. So this one is number 6. It's this shade right here, and it's in the exact same spot. This is the Midnight Sun Mothership VI palette, and then this is the Divine Rose, and it's also in this palette. Now here's my thing. I don't mind that this shade is in this palette because I actually do have it on my eyes right now and I love the impact. Like I will say, when I got this Midnight Sun palette, which I'm really loving, that was one of my favorite shades in this entire palette. I absolutely love that shade. So I was really happy to have it in my collection, but having a repeat so close together was kind of frustrating because I'm like, these are $120, $125 palettes. And when you get all of those repeat shades, it kind of is frustrating, you know what I mean? Because you want to pay for something that you don't already have. And, you know, we're getting into that anyways. There's so many new palettes out on the market and we're starting to get a lot of repetitiveness in our collection as it is. And then you have a brand like Pat McGrath who, you know, has some of the most beautiful textures in her palettes that almost justify the price because they are so incredible. But when you get those repeats, it's like, no, I don't want a repeat. I want something different, you know? At the end of the day, it is what it is, but I do have this beautiful palette in my collection. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the 3 looks that I created with this palette, and then I will come back and do some swatches, and I will give you guys my final thoughts at the end. So I will see you guys then. Okay, let's get into look number 1. This is the palette and the packaging is gorgeous. Like, I mean, here's the eye and the lips and all the roses. It's just, the packaging is just stunning on this. So this is the inside of the palette and it is actually really pretty. There's a lot of cool tone shades in this palette. With a little bit of warmth, and I'm kind of here for it. Now, I have put down my P. Louise eyeshadow base, and then I also set it with some powder. Let's first go into Valoria. Okay, next up, I'm going to go into Extreme Mahogany and kind of deepen up the crease. I'm going to put that here on the outer corner as well, just kind of like doing like a tapping motion to kind of tap it into place. All right, I'm gonna wipe off that crease brush and I'm gonna go back into Valoria. That shade is actually really pretty, like those two together. Bring in Extreme Mahogany on the lower lash line. Also going to build that shade up here on this outer corner just to kind of get some depth. Now, as far as the lid goes, I'm thinking I want to go into Love Dust or Love Lace. Normally, I think that kind of a shade is going to apply better with a finger, but I have nails on, so it's really hard for me to get up in there with nails. So I'm just going to put it here on my Worker Pro from Sonia G. Take some here on the tip and kind of bring it up and kind of open my eye up a little bit. I'm gonna grab the Skin Show Nude, place that on the inner corner. I'm gonna take the Astral Solstice I'm gonna take it here on an applicator and I'm gonna spray down the applicator. It's one of my favorites in the other palette, and I'm gonna put that right in the middle. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, that's so pretty. Like, that just brought that shade to a whole other level. So this is the final look, and I think that this turned out really pretty. I do love how that glitter topper just brought it to another level and kind of gave it a little bit of something extra. And the lippy that I chose is the Charlotte Tilbury Iconic Nude. I went with this shade. And then I went over top of it with my favorite nude from Christian Audette and Mel Thompson. It's in the shade Beauty. This is look number 1. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 2. Okay, so let's start on look number 2. I'm gonna first go into Velouria. I'm gonna grab my Builder Pro and I'm gonna go into Rose Dusk, and I'm gonna place that here on this outer corner. I think I might bring that on the inner corner as well. I'm gonna sweep that in the crease over top of that purple. So I'm going to mix between the Velouria and the Rose Dusk and kind of pack that here on this outer corner. All right, then I'm going to go into the VR Rose Venus. Kind of place that on the middle of the eyelid. For the lower lash line, I'm going to go into Velouria. I'm going to go into Rose Dusk. I'm going to take a pencil brush and go into VR Rose Venus. I'm actually going to spray this down just so that I have a little bit more control over it when I put it on the lower lash line. Going in with a little bit of the Velouria, and I'm just going to soften up these edges so that it blends. Then I'm going to go into Skin Show Nude and pop that right here on the inner corner. And I'm going to take a tiny, tiny bit of the Rose Venus and pop it right over top. Just a little bit though. Okay, so this is the finished look for look number 2, and I love those shades together. And I really like that Rose Dusk on the crease. I think it added that extra depth and shine to the crease, and it's a really pretty look. Very wearable on a daily basis, even though the Rose Venus is more of a holographic type of shade. It's a very wearable shade, and I really like it. So that's it for this look. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 3. Okay, so let's get started on look number 3 on this eye. So I'm going to go directly into the Extreme Mahogany. I just kind of built that shade on top of itself, keeping it kind of lighter around here and then deeper towards the crease part. Oh, that shade is so pretty, you guys. Like, I love that shade of purple, and it adds such depth and it builds so beautifully on top of itself. Now I'm gonna go into the Sable Bronze. I am going to spray this down. So I'm just gonna apply this all over the lid. So I'm gonna wipe that brush off and I'm gonna go into Refined Gold, also spray it. Oh my gosh, that shade is so freaking pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna dip between the Sable Bronze and the Refined Gold. And I'm gonna gently, carefully bring that up into the crease. Just with like the tip of the brush. I just took my concealer brush that I applied my concealer with and just kind of did this with it. I will fade that line in just a minute. I'm gonna go into the Extreme Mahogany. I'm gonna mix between Extreme Mahogany and the Sable Bronze. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the Astral Solstice, just a little bit, and place that right in the center of my lid so that when the light hits it, it's like more reflective. For the inner corner, I'm gonna go into the Skin Show Nude. Place that right here. Then I want to pop a little bit of the gold, so the Refined Gold 002 right over top of it. Okay, so I'm just gonna apply a brown eyeliner on the upper waterline and probably the lower lash line. That's exactly what I did on this eye. And throw a lash on, and I will be right back. This is the final look for look number 3, and I love this. I love the bronzy with the gold, and I like that it's in this palette. It kind of gives it a little bit of variation. I think this look turned out really pretty, and yeah. As far as the lippy, I grabbed my KKW Beauty Nude number 3 lip liner, and I grabbed this from Pat McGrath. This is BlitzTrance lipstick in the shade Nude Romantique. Like, I can deepen it with a darker lip liner, or it can just be this really pretty rose shade. This is a really pretty shade, especially to wear with any of the shades in this palette. So that's it for look number 3. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches of the palette, and then I will get into my final thoughts. So the first set of images are of the palette itself. I took one without a flash, and I also took one with a flash so that you guys could see some of the undertones of, you know, some of those real sparkly, beautiful shades. It definitely swatches well. The mattes are always so smooth. In the next set of images, I actually compared it to the Carly Bible palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I did find some similarities. Obviously, the textures in the Pat McGrath palette are going to be completely different than the ABH. The Pat McGrath Refined Gold 002. As you'll notice right above it, I swatched the shade Moo and My Angels. But I have a feeling if you mixed those two shades together, you would probably get a shade very similar to the Refined Gold 002. Love Lace is definitely much more brighter and kind of a lighter purple, where the ABH Libra is more of like a lilac color. The Skin Show Nude is definitely way more pigmented than ABH Bali. Bali is very beautiful, but it does not compare to the Skin Show Nude. In the next set of images, I compared it to the ColourPop and Kathleen Lights So Jaded palette. These two are totally different palettes as far as quality goes, although I do really like ColourPop quality. As far as being affordable, ColourPop is probably my favorite. I didn't really find a lot of similarities with the matte shades in the Divine Rose, but in some of the actual shimmer shades and stuff like that, there were some similar shades. So the Sable Bronze from the Pat McGrath was very similar to the Tiger Eye from the ColourPop palette. And the VS Rose, Venus, and Sunstone, those are definitely not the same, but kind of. I think that the Venus Rose is definitely that holographic and Sunstone isn't. But Sunstone is the exact same shade that the Rose Venus is under a light. And we have the Astral Solstice next to the Diamond. I mean, that one kind of speaks for itself. The Astral Solstice is just such a beautiful shade that it just sparkles like crazy. The Skin Show Nude and the Pearl from ColourPop was very similar. Also, the Love Lace and the Smoky Quartz were also very similar. Okay, so now that we got through the swatches, let me give you guys my final thoughts about the palette. I actually really like this palette. I think this palette is very wearable for those everyday looks, kind of something like the Midnight Sun. The Midnight Sun was definitely my favorite because I was able to wear these shades on a daily basis. Some of the shades from the Pat McGrath Mothership VII Palette, there was just a lot of the holographic shades in here that I will probably never reach for. I do find myself grabbing this shade right here. This Rose Gold from the VI palette is so beautiful. For me personally, I do think that the Divine Rose and the Midnight Sun are both very wearable palettes. Like the Pat McGrath VI palette, it's one of those palettes where you're gonna reach for it sometimes, but not all the time. But as you saw in the swatches, if you have the ColourPop So Jaded palette, you could probably create similar looks with that palette versus the Divine Rose. You know, this Divine Rose is a limited edition. I don't know when it's going to come back. I don't know. They have not been forefront on the information on this palette. Who knows? So if this is a color story that you really like, if you love Pat McGrath formula, I definitely recommend getting your hands on this one. I think I will be using it more so than, you know, some of the quads that I have, or even the Pat McGrath 5. So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for the love that you show me every single time I upload. It means so much to me. I hope you guys have a wonderful day filled with love and joy, and I will see you guys in my next video, and I love you all so much. Bye!